Hello, everybody. Here we are for another edition of Pedal Talk, and haven't been with you in a couple weeks. Do some other things with Douglas County, the Sheriff's Department, which you saw on our website. But we're here today with Natalie Rayborn, and Natalie is basically the race director for a really cool event that is going to be held on the west side of Denver called the Beti Bike Bash. What's cool about it is it identifies, and it is a totally women's bike race, bike expo, and just a mountain biking event. So welcome to the show, Natalie. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me, Gary. I am glad you reached out.
Yeah, thanks for being with us. This sounds like a very cool event. Hey, I'll just get right to it. How did it come about?
Well, I will keep it relatively short, but I think it was about 14 years ago, so I also don't want to age myself. But there were a group of women, including myself, racing mountain bikes. And it was back when, if any of your listeners have been mountain biking for a while, when there was a Mountain States Cup was a thing, and also Winter Park, which is still definitely a thing, but perhaps it was a little bit bigger 10, 15 years ago. And we realized that we were definitely in the minority as women on these teams, and the teams were great and super supportive, and we were glad to be on them. But you know, we had to get men's chemis and things like that, just because there weren't enough of us to order women's kits. So, and we all hung out kind of anyway. So someone, I don't know who we can give credit to, probably my teammate Amy Thomas, decided let's start our own team. And we were relatively good, expert-ish, maybe dabbling in pro or the other way. And we had no desires to go to World Cup or be crazy serious races, but we wanted to be committed to the sport. So we decided we had a couple of requirements to start this team. And we were either in our late 20s or early 30s. And so the requirements was a bike sponsor, a beer sponsor, and a coffee sponsor. And so we kept it pretty simple, and we all were in Denver area. So we asked Yeti Cycles if they would sponsor us, and they said yes, pretty much immediately. And so once we had the bike, we just thought about what do we want to be called, and someone came up with the fun name Yeti Betty, just because we're a women's team, and it stuck. And so we started this race team back in, I think it was 2008 was the first year that we did it. And we varied between 7 and 10. But where the race comes in, Amy Thomas, who was one of our definitely leaders of the whole kind of team coming together, really wanted to find a way to get more women out at races. And we realized that mountain biking can be somewhat intimidating to everyone, but especially women. And when you're racing with men and they come up behind you, and we think it can be nerve-wracking. It's nerve-wracking for us, and we've heard from others that's what stops people from coming out to race. And so Amy definitely was the person who had this inspiration for an event that was welcoming to all women, and it was challenging and competitive, but not so much so that you had to train for 6 months to do it, or drive 4 hours, or have really good technical skills. And so we came up with Bear Creek, which, if anyone has ridden there, it's fun and beautiful, but it's generally doable for anyone who has a mountain bike. And thus the Beti Bike Bash was born. And here we are 14 years later. The Beti Bash still goes on. I feel like I'm one-siding this podcast, so I'll bounce it back to you.
No. Hey, you're doing great. Just wanted to find out a little about the history of it, and you know it, and I don't. So what's the date of the event?
So this year it's October 13th. It's on a Sunday. On Saturday, there'll be people out there pre-riding the course, and you can come get your packet. We try to make it really family friendly. And so this year it's actually at a new venue. It's still at the same park. So we're getting kind of that sorted out. But the course this year, in my opinion, is a lot more fun than it has been the last 13 years, just because we're going to be utilizing the entire park. But we've also still really trying to be mindful of beginners and people who've never raced before, and not putting them in a position that would make them feel fearful or that it's something out of their reach. So we've tested courses, and we think we're in a good place. People can go out and ride the courses now. It's open to the public, so you can get a feel of if it's something you want to do. And then the other thing that I didn't mention is we're pretty unique when it comes to this bike race. We have a couple of categories that you won't find anywhere else. We have
that
a category
was my next
called,
question. I wanted to find out about all the categories.
So we have a category called Never Ever, and it's essentially beginner. It's the same course as beginner, but it's for people who have never ever done a mountain bike race before. And you don't have to race that category if you're an experienced mountain biker but never raced before. You can still race up in the higher categories, no problem at all. But if you want to know that everyone around you has never done this before as well, then Never Ever is the category for you. And so you don't have to be maybe as nervous about who knows what the rules are or how to pass or not to pass. So you can figure it all out together. The other category that we have that is pretty unique is called the new mum category. And that is anyone who's had a baby in the last 18 months is welcome to sign up. And sometimes that category is just super cute because the mums have the babies with their partners, you know, at the venue, and it's really fun to see people prioritizing getting out and getting back on the bike or trying the bike. So that's two of the unique categories that make the Beti special.
And then basically all the other categories just by, are you going by cat or are you going by age? How are they all split up?
So we have, because it's generally a big enough event, we do age group categories, but then we also have Never, Ever, and Beginner, which are very similar. And so that's going to be self-selected a little bit. And then we do Sport, which is more of an intermediate category, which is 12 miles. And then Expert is 16 miles, is Expert and Open. So people can self-select. You don't need a license. You can go out and decide, you know, after riding the courses, what you want to race. If you're unsure, you can email us. We're happy to provide guidance. But generally, if you've mountain biked or you've been mountain biking this summer and you feel pretty confident, you probably race at least Sport. But if you've never raced before and you want to jump in Beginner, no problem. I mean, it's very interesting, the Beti, because it's one of the most friendly, and we call it the Beti. It's just become nicknamed the Beti, but it almost sums up, I think, women in a sense, and it's one of the most friendly events out there, but it's still wildly competitive. Like, the women are still kind of working hard, giving it their all. It's not just this easy pedal around the park. It's still hard. People are working really hard out there, and passing people and wanting to win. Some people wanting to win, but it's also, I think, really supportive. And I often go to a hill and cheer people on, and you hear all the time, "You got this, keep going," or I love the feeling out there.
So, how many participants this year do you expect?
I would love to have 400 women out there. That would be my dream.
Would that be a record?
Very close. We've had 400 in the past. So last year we were a little down, but this year we're looking good. The other thing that we provide, or not provide, but we people get a choice between a hat and a t-shirt as part of the entry, and I'll send you images of those because they're pretty cool. We kind of pride ourselves in the gear that you get.
It's all about the swag.
Yeah, exactly. And it's fun because now, after being around for so long, you see it around town and on the trails and things like that. So that's pretty fun. And then for forever, we have done finisher socks. This year, we're actually mixing it up a little bit because we heard some people have, people who've done it year after year have many, many socks. And because it's October and the weather's starting to change, we're going to do finisher beanies for the winter coming in.
That idea.
Yeah, so anyone who signs up can choose between a hat and a t-shirt, depending on how soon they sign up. And then when they finish, they can get a beanie. And we also, Wahoo's a great sponsor, been around since day one also. We'll have some tacos there, and we have Scar Brewing out there for a beer at the end. So it's almost like an end of year mountain bike party as well. We have a little kid strider, little wheel race out there part of the day. And the other thing I should mention is we have partnered with an organization called Little Bellas also from day one. And Little Bellas is a nonprofit. We are a nonprofit. So we try to break even on this event as best we can. And then if we do, we donate money back to Little Bellas. But Little Bella's mission is to get little girls on bikes. I think their age range is 8 to 12. Don't quote me on that. And so they're all over the country, but they do camps in Denver area throughout the summer, including a 2-day camp around the Beti Bike Bash. And then we conclude the day with the Little Bella race. And that, there's a lot of highlights on this day. So I encourage, even if you're a male or you're not ready to race, just to come out. But so last year we did have 50 Little Bellas. So 50 girls between 8 and 12 on mountain bikes. And it kind of felt like the Olympics for them because everyone hung around, and the race is definitely a race feeling. And, you know, you can kind of start to see the competitive nature of these young girls come out, and they're racing for sure, but it's not timed and we don't have podiums. So it's not necessarily, we just don't want that. We don't feel the need to put them in that position yet. They can get the feeling and the adrenaline of racing, and they know how they did, but there's no, you know, priority on first, second, or third with those girls. Yeah.
When does the event start on that day? How early?
9 o'clock, just because daylight.
Sure.
We used to, to do it in June.
They're getting shorter already.
Yeah, exactly. The sun comes up right around 7 on that day. And so it gives us a few hours to get to the park and get organized. The schedule is online. And I just lost one headphone. Can you still hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay. The schedule is online. It might change just very slightly as we dial in these new courses, just because it's going to allow us to run the event a little more compact, because in the past, people have done multiple laps on the same course. This year, everyone only does one lap except expert and pro. So it hopefully will streamline the day a little bit. We shall see. Yeah.
Cool. Hey, and then just to get out of the event for just a second, with mountain biking, have you seen, I see it some down here in Castle Rock, there's so much congestion on the roads, and it's harder and harder to train on the roads. Do you see mountain biking in your area also, you know, a good influx of it? Is it taking off more as road riders are decreasing? Are you seeing more enthusiasm around just riding on trails and mountain biking up that way?
I think the answer is definitely yes. I think the pandemic, just like all cycling, kind of pushed that a little bit. The one thing, not exactly what you asked, but I think it's worth mentioning, is I do see significantly more women on trail out there now. And there's a lot of people in our little community, Amy, our team, this event. There's a couple of groups that do women's clinics. Comba has done a great job at trying to develop women's interests. And I really think it's paying off with more women on bikes. I'm not sure if it's paying off with more women at races as much as we would like, but more women on bikes. I live in Evergreen, and yesterday I rode Lair of the Bear, which I honestly avoid quite a bit just because it has got so busy. But I went really early. I was on the trail by 6:30. And I only saw 5 other bikers on the way back, and 4 of them were women. So that's just rad. I mean, I think 10 years ago, I'd go biking and it would be odd to see one woman. So that is cool. And I think trail congestion is a thing, but I don't know if it's gotten better or I've just gotten off Facebook a little bit to reading angry hiker posts. But I think it's gotten better, and Comba's doing a good job of trying to build more trails, which will help in the long run, because we have more places to go. So,
do you think this is a little bit unique. Like most races, you're licensed, you're going in. I see that mostly with road races, and where hopefully, I hope it does, where the Grand Fonda type of race takes off more and more, because so they can be funded by the general public wanting to ride that course. Where this is a little bit like that, or it resonates with me like that it's cool because it's so inclusive of the total population of female riders, not just the licensed racer. Do you see that as a trend moving forward for other races to start maybe broadening who gets to participate and broadening to the general public? Hey, try this out.
Yeah, I definitely hope so. Mm-hmm. And, I hope along the same lines, USA Cycling can find a way to embrace that as well. But that's a topic for another podcast. Mm-hmm. One thing I didn't mention when I kind of talked about how the Beti got to where it is today, our team, Yeti Betties, we still feel like we'll live on forever as the Yeti Betties, but only a few of us race here and there now. So I wouldn't say we're really a race team anymore. Right. And when Amy was doing the lion's share of the work, she had a job where she worked a 4-day week. And so Friday was her off day, and that kind of where she volunteered all her time to do the lion's share of the work for this event. And we as a team kind of just came in and had our duties, and we're like super volunteers essentially. But then Amy's life circumstances changed and her job changed. She's in a great new job. And to be honest, 10 years to do an event, volunteer, it was really rewarding, but also got a little bit challenging. And so our enthusiasm just started to dwindle a little bit. And that's where just a confluence of events, honestly. Jen Barber, who's the executive director of Team Evergreen, which is now Shift Events, happened to be talking to Amy, and Amy more or less said, I think the Betty's going to go away because I don't have the bandwidth to kind of volunteer to put it on anymore, essentially. Mm-hmm. And right place, right time. Jen thought it would be a good fit for the events that are in the Team Evergreen brand. And so rewind there. Team Evergreen, again, is now transitioning to the brand name Shift Events, still a nonprofit, still the same group. But Team Evergreen runs the Triple Bypass, Salida 76, the gravel race, the Hundo, Blue Sky Hill Climb Session Series, which is an enduro weeknight series in the spring. So I am going somewhere with this. So all of these events really are kind of so the Triple Bypass is not timed. So that really is more of a Fondo type feel. And that's the biggest event. There's 4,500 riders. And that really is what kind of propels all the other events to give them the underlying support to be successful. The Hundo is for sure a race, and that sells out in a day, but no license is needed. And I do think it's pitched to be really welcoming. And as long as you want to get out there and do it, the podium is not the priority for most people. Same with Salida 76. It is a race, but we allow e-bikes. So people it's quite remote, that race, and the e-bike section is not timed. So there's a lot of people who want to just get out and have a gravel adventure, but can't or don't want to do it alone because it's just a little bit a step too far, either safety wise or no water, things like that. So people are signing up for these events, not necessarily to be timed as fast as they can be, but just have that experience out there. So, and then the Blue Sky this year sold out, and it has not for years, and I think partly because we tried to position it that it is more of a Fondo feel. The USA Cycling did still have their part of the race, so the races could come, but otherwise it really had the feel of you against the clock, and it was a mass start. And if you wanted just to be out there to experience it, then you could. You didn't have to be there and have your warm-up trainer and be all racy. You could just get out there and enjoy it. Yeah. So I think in general that is the vibe that we want to portray. There's definitely a place for racing, but I think we can all coexist even in the same event for the most part.
Well, I think not just from a financial or not just from a fan standpoint, from a financial standpoint, it makes sense to draw more people to it to be able to afford to put on the race because you're
Yeah.
dealing with, there's a lot of expenses. And if you can spread that out and welcome in people that aren't racers, but would love to do it, that just brings an influx of cash and entry fees that end up paying for the event and make it a better event.
Yeah.
I know that's why a lot of road races that's why a lot of road races right now are dying off because they haven't taken that step. They've just stayed, hey, we're racing only, and they haven't taken that step towards being more of a fondo.
Yeah. I think the other thing, if we're talking about races and events here, it's challenging, and I get to see both sides of it as a athlete and also a producer. The cost to produce events has just gone out of control when it comes to insurance and permits and porta potties, and everything. So it's finding that balance between trying to provide value, but also keeping the cost that's reasonable to people. And I think we're lucky in the fact of being a nonprofit, we can try and straddle that line a little bit more. We obviously need to set prices to make enough money to support what we do and then also give back to the nonprofits that we support, but we're not beholden to shareholders by like something like Lifetime is. So trying to find that balance of value, and we come down where, it's the experience of what you walk away with is the most key, and that includes, do you feel good about what you have in your hand? Or is it something you're going to turn into a chain rig? But mostly is when you're out on course, are the aid stations what you want? The Beti does not have aid stations. It's too short. But for something like Salida 76, do you feel like the medical support is where you want it to be? And hopefully anyone that does any of shift events leave and feel like whatever they paid was worth it. That's where we come down. But it's tough. It really is getting tough. And so some of the smaller events are struggling because just, the cost to put it on and then make it worth your while, worth their while is really challenging. But back to the, welcoming nature, I've heard many times over the years, the Beti was my first ever mountain bike race. And so that was, that's a cool place to start. I mean, mountain biking in general can be pretty hard. Even a 12-mile race in Winter Park is quite difficult, whether it becomes because of the climbing or the altitude, whereas you can jump in and still push really hard at Bear Creek, but hopefully for most people, they won't have that anxiety that it's not within their reach physically. It might hurt because you're pushing hard, but it's almost anyone can do this, and anyone is welcome, which I'm glad we have that type of environment.
Everybody's welcome as long as they're a girl.
Well, if they identify as a woman, yes, they're welcome. But anyone's welcome to come out and cheer. That's true.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yes. Yep. Yeah. And we floated trying to, put in some way for the men to race. But the feedback we get is that would just change the vibe of the event.
I agree.
Most mountain bike events are lucky to get 20% women. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, it would be much better for us financially if we turn this into a co-ed race, because we are now finding we have another 80% of people statistically to pull from. But we want to keep this. The team, the Shift Events Board, think this is an important event for the community to allow that place for the young girls to get out there and women and mums to try something new and just have it be fun. Now, that being said, this is not a women's fest by any means. If you come out, you'll see the whole place is full of partners, husbands, boyfriends, girlfriends, kids. It's just it's a big kind of party there because it's a fun time to.
Well, I'm looking forward
to be out
to
there.
It.
Yeah.
And we've already got the event posted on our website. I'm going to be updating that and adding a lot more stuff on ColoradoAvidCyclist.com under the event page. And you sent us some pictures. We're going to get those on there. So everything will link to your registration as well. But hopefully I'll be out there as well and be giving away a little bit of swag to all the contestants and all the racers and riders and the little Bellas, excuse me. And just we should have a fun day of it.
Yeah. And if anyone has any questions, they're welcome to email us. And like I said, the course is available to ride now. The park does have an entry fee, which you can definitely pay to go in there and park and go to the actual area where the event starts. Or many people park, outside the park and just pedal in for a little extra pedal. So that's personal preference. The courses are on the website, and if you have Strava, should be pretty easy to follow. The course network at Bear Creek is, you're never going to get really lost there. You're not going to be lost in the wilderness at Bear Creek, but there's a lot of little trails, and so it can be a little maybe frustrating the first time you go ride it if you're not following something on a GPS, but you'll kind of find your way.
And what's the website?
So it's Betty with an I, like the bike. So bettybikebash.com.
Okay. And what is the best email somebody does have?
It might be .org. I just said .com, but I don't know.
I'm looking up. It is .com.
Okay, good. Yeah, our other websites are .org, so made me question for a second. Yeah.
And email. What's the best email if somebody has any questions?
I think for now the best email, there's two, but probably the best one, so in case I'm not in the office, is info@teamevergreen.org.
Still teamevergreen.org? Okay,
yeah,
great.
Yeah.
Well, super.
Yeah, that will be changing soon, but for now we'll keep that for indefinitely because it's entrenched in
It's entrenched in a lot of people's heads and on my and in my contact sheet.
And if people, hopefully I've motivated someone. If this motivates 3 people to come out and race, that would be amazing. And if you don't like the word race, you can say push hard and get a good workout.
There you go.
But we also are looking for volunteers, and there's information about that on the website.
You are looking for volunteers?
Yeah.
Okay, definitely put shout out too.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being with us. I really appreciate you being on. This is great. And I'm looking forward to being out there. This is going to be a fun event.
Yeah, for sure. And if anyone else any males are listening to this and looking for a fun gravel event, there's still a few spots left in the Salida 76, which is September 14th in Salida.
Hence why the name.
Yeah, exactly. It's 76 miles, but it's a tough. You start with a pretty tough climb, and you're up at 10,000 feet for quite a while. So it's beautiful with the leaves changing up there.
And, that's going to be gorgeous. That's true.
Yeah. Yep. If anyone's familiar with Steamboat talks about champagne gravel, well, we say champagne gravel with a whiskey chaser.
I'll just up at Steamboat. There's some just great gravel riding up there too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, beautiful.
Well, you have a great day, and I look forward to seeing you at the Betty Bash. And take care. We'll be in touch.
Thanks for having me. Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.